check this out. This is in alignment with what's happening in the energy right now with men and women, right? This is from Scientific American. It says, and it's dated on the solstice, December 21st, 2023. Sniffing women's tears makes men less aggressive. It says, for the first time, researchers have used behavioral measures, brain imaging, and molecular biology to test how odorless chemicals from human tears affect people. It's by Rachel Noor. Raquel Noor. Noor is the light. Noor. Rachel, this is the head L. Alright. When someone starts to cry, other people oftentimes feel empathy and concern. But the biological reasons for shedding tears can extend beyond merely prompting a sense of compassion. The tears themselves appear to take on a role as a chemical peacemaker between men and women, new research has discovered. Women's tears act to reduce aggression in men who are close enough to catch a whiff of the waterworks. According to findings published by PLOS Biology and confirmed through human behavioral studies, brain imaging, and molecular biology. Right? The researchers speculate that tears from people who aren't women likely have a similar effect, but this has yet to be tested. Alright? How you feel when women be crying? I'm gonna tell you. You know what I mean? It can cause peace and it can cause war. You know what I mean? But let's keep on with this. The new paper suggests that a fundamental reason why women shed emotional tears is, quote, to convey a chemical sign that lowers aggression, end quote, says Shani Agron, co-lead author of the study, which she conducted for her doctoral degree in neurobiology at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. Parentheses, Agron has since graduated, close parentheses. Quote, we believe this is a shared mechanism of many mammals, end quote. Goes on to say producing tears has long been considered a uniquely human behavior, but that's a flawed notion, says a co-senior author, Noam Sobel, a neurobiologist at the Weizmann Institute, the Weizmann Institute of Science, who was Agron's advisor. It says, dogs, for example, shed tears when they reunite with their owners after a period of separation. Alright, dog tears, they had to be in there. Baby mouse tears contain molecular cues that sway female mice to reject male advances, while pheromones in female mouse tears encourage males to stop fighting each other and mate with the female instead. Hear that? The mole rat subordinates, moreover, go so far as to cover themselves in their own tears to chemically deflect aggression from dominant members in their group. It continues, humans, like other mammals, communicate information with body odors. But it wasn't obvious that tears could have an olfactory effect on human behavior because people cannot perceive a smell from them. Into your olfactories. These are the olfactories. You know what I mean? That burn that fire. That's breathed in. Additionally, while most mammals have a second olfactory organ that is responsible for detecting pheromones, in humans, this organ is thought to be vestigial. Vestigial. I know. What does vestigial mean? Well, let's look it up. Vestigial. 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 Vestigial etymology. Vestigial. Vestigial. Hold on, let's get a pronunciation.
Vestigial.
There you go. Of a body part or organ, remaining in a form that is small or imperfectly developed and not able to function, having the form of a vestige. Vestigial. You know, like the parotid gland. Vestigial. Remaining in a form that is small or imperfectly developed. Right? That's something you can tie into it. You know what I mean? Missing parts. Alright. So going back. So the first evidence that tears can chemically influence human behavior emerged in 2011 when Sobel and his colleagues published a study in Science that showed that women's tears reduced levels of testosterone and self-reported sexual arousal in men. This earlier work raised more questions than it provided answers for. It took years of effort to conduct a more thorough follow-up, in part because of the difficulty of collecting tears from donors. Yeah, that was probably an interesting process. But funny enough, I saw an episode of Family Guy, right, where Meg's tears and cookies, you know what I mean, made them a hot seller. They sold off the shelves. So, the research needed at least 1 milliliter of tears to use on each experimental participant, which is, quote, a lot of tears, end quote, Sobel says. Using an onion or other irritant to force someone's eyes to water is not an option. Not the same kind of tears. Agron adds, because, quote, these are completely different type of tears, end quote. Before I read that, I said that. Yeah, different types of tears. So, to collect the tears used in the new study, the team put out a call for volunteers who cry easily. Yeah. Only a few men showed up, and none was able to produce enough tears to qualify. Of the 100 or so women who volunteered, only 6 were able to supply sufficient amount of tears to warrant collection. Participants could use any means they wanted to elicit the tears, from listening to sad music to reading a sad letter, but most turned to the lab's expansive, quote, library of sad movies, end quote. Agron says. In addition to tears, the researchers also collected drops of saline solution that they trickled down women's faces for use in control experiments, right? Because, you know, tears are salty. The researchers next gathered data from 25 male volunteers who played a game in the lab that is often used in studies of aggression. During the competitive game, participants were led to believe that their opponent was another person. It was, in fact, a computer algorithm. Check that out. However, occasionally, the opponent stole money from the participants, who who could then either choose to take revenge with no monetary gain for themselves, or let their opponent get away with it but continue collecting more money for themselves. The researchers calculated aggressiveness by the number of times a participant chose revenge divided by the number of times they were provoked. The team also repeated this experiment in a second group of 26 male volunteers who played the game while inside a magnetic resonance imaging scanner, allowing their brain activity data to be collected. This is the science they on now, funded and all. All participants played the game twice, and before each session, they were asked to inhale from a, quote, sniff jar, end quote, that they were told contained, quote, assorted odors, end quote, but that in fact held either tears or saline. The researchers found that when the men sniffed the women's tears, they were nearly 44% less aggressive in the game than when they sniffed the saline solution. The behavioral reduction in aggression was also accompanied by neuronal changes in the brain, in the neurons, in the neural network. That's me adding all that. The researchers observed that the men's brains post-tear sniff exhibited less activity in the prefrontal cortex and the left anterior insula, regions that are associated with aggression and decision making. All right. Connectivity between the anterior insula and amygdala, a region that is responsible for emotional processing and also part of the olfactory network, right, connected to the nose, that nose increased as well. Working with colleagues at Duke University, the team used molecular biology methods to test the effects of tears and saline on 62 human olfactory receptors in a lab dish. They identified 4 receptors that responded to tears, but not saline. This finding helps to answer, quote, a major question, end quote, about how pheromone-like signals are processed in humans, Agron says. Goes on to say, Agron, Sobel, and their colleagues are now interested in running future experiments to test the effect of women's tears on other women and that of babies' tears on adults, which is something I was just talking about in a previous recording. Quote, babies cannot communicate with you in language, end quote. He says, right, quote, but evolution may have provided babies with this tool to lower aggression, end quote. The fact that people continue to be able to produce tears throughout adulthood, Agron adds, indicates that crying is probably, quote, a behavior that serves us throughout life, end quote. That is the article. And you can go check it out at Scientific American.
And all that mess.